Welcome to another episode of the Morning Almonds Podcast. It's not breakfast, it's nourishment. The kind that feeds us through music, food, storytelling, and honest conversation. Let's get cracking. Welcome, friends, and I thank you so much for spending time with me today. I thought it would be fitting to discuss the 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz for the 4th episode of Morning Almonds. Our guest today is cellist and professor Christina Gentzsch. But before we get to that conversation, I wanted to talk about what iPad has done for me. And when I say iPad, it's my shortened version for the 4 Agreements, like this. I, for impeccable with your word. P, for personal. Don't take things personal. A, for assumptions. Don't make assumptions. D, for do your best at the other 3 and in your actions. Again, iPad. I use a lot of acronyms, especially in my job as a food safety inspector. There's HENS, with 3 S's. That's for the big 6 foodborne illnesses. You have hepatitis A, E. coli, norovirus, salmonella, salmonella typhi, and shigella. And then I also use it geographically, like I use NSF for Norway, Sweden, Finland, starting from the west. And then I use MNV for Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont, starting from the east. Back to the 4 Agreements here. The full title is actually The 4 Agreements, A Practical Guide to Personal Freedom, a Toltec wisdom book. It's a book on self-mastery. Self-mastery is defined by the Collins English Dictionary as the ability to take control of one's life without being blown off course by feelings, urges, or circumstances. A few things I want to mention as we start. God is mentioned throughout the book, and I want to stress this is not the Western Christian God. When Ruiz uses the word God in the 4 Agreements, he's pointing to the universal creative energy that permeates all things, not a Christian or Abrahamic deity. It's a metaphor for the sacredness of life itself and for the idea that we are all direct expressions of that force. Some, like me, take it as we are all our own gods, in charge of our own direct universe. I feel this is important to mention because a few people I have given the book to were turned off right away by the mention of God, and I have learned to preface this when introducing it. The book is filled with great Toltec wisdom and insights beyond the 4 Agreements. One example is how we live in a dream. We are always dreaming even when we are awake. When we're awake, the framework of material items, like trees, phones, anything material, like even other people, make it a linear process. But during sleep, that world is gone, and that's why those dreams are way more fragmented and nonlinear. Another example is that true justice is paying once for a mistake, but humans, we commit true injustice by punishing ourselves again and again. When we think about a mistake, our inner judge condemns us and our inner victim accepts the guilt, so we relive the pain many, many times. Other animals don't do this. If they're punished once, it's over. Humans, by contrast, carry the memory and keep reopening the wound every time we think about it. Ruiz's framework is designed to help us step out of that cycle. The last example for now is since I'm just finding out that I am a perfectionist, a recovering one. The author explains that perfectionism is one of the ways humans resist life. From childhood, we're taught impossible standards through domestication, and our inner judge condemns us whenever we fall short. This constant striving to be flawless leads to self-rejection, guilt, and endless self-punishment, so we don't even try. Ruiz offers these 4 agreements as a path to break free from perfectionism and live with acceptance and freedom. When we finally get over ourselves, we get over so many other things. We make all sorts of agreements with ourselves every day. My latest conscious positive one is trying not to get anxious when someone is tailgating me, just to act like they're not even there. People in a sour relationship, they make agreements every day with themselves on what trade-offs they may get in return for being miserable. The agreements we make with ourselves are the invisible contracts that define our identity and limit our freedom. But by becoming aware of them, we can choose to break the destructive ones and replace them with agreements that bring peace and authenticity. I've got some more examples of agreements, starting with a limiting framework and then followed by a liberating example. Instead of, I'm not worthy of love unless I please others, believe, I am worthy of love simply as I am. How about this one? I'll never be as good as my peers. Never compare. I grow at my own pace, and my unique gifts have value. Then there's, if I make a mistake, I'm a failure. Remember, mistakes are stepping stones, and each one helps me grow. The Rock. I must always be strong and never show weakness. No, no, no. My vulnerability is part of my strength. Knowing your weaknesses is your biggest strength. If I speak my truth, people will reject me. Think instead, when I speak my truth, I invite authentic connection and provide a voice for others. Instead of, I'm the shy one, try, I can choose when and how to share my voice. Then there's the very popular, I'm not creative. Instead go with, creativity flows through me in my own unique way. We are all artists. We are all creating in our brains all day long. Everything I mentioned above is in direct correlation with the first agreement of being impeccable with your word. This is in the context of using your words as black magic or white magic on others, and especially ourselves. Ruiz makes clear that he is not talking about sorcery or literal magic. Black and white magic are symbolic terms for the destructive or constructive power of language. This reminds me of a story in the Four Agreements, and I'm not sure exactly what part of the book it's in. But a little girl, she loves to sing, and she's always singing. She has a beautiful voice. Her mother one day comes home, and she's upset, stressed, whatever the case may be, and she tells her that she is a horrible singer, and she cannot sing, and stop that racket. And that little girl, from that moment on, she never sang again. She believed those words that came from her mother, someone that she was supposed to trust, and someone that is supposed to support her. And this is a great example of how our words can affect people. That old saying, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me, that's a bunch of bullshit. I believe that saying was probably made up by some guy. You know it was some man who made that up, after he sat there and berated somebody about something. I'm not perfect, I do the same thing. This agreement is the one that I have to work on every single day. You can begin to understand in the examples I read above how we talk to ourselves matters just as much as how we talk to others. Before we get to our conversation with today's guest, think of the black magic that is spread daily in non-face-to-face communications. Try to think of that next time you're on social media. Try some white magic instead. That brings us to today's guest. Let me welcome Christina Gentzsch. Christina is a cellist, educator, a music entrepreneur based in Iowa. She's built a career that blends performance, teaching, and community engagement. She was born in Dodge City, Kansas, and raised in Garden City. Christina currently serves as professor of cello at Clark University in Dubuque, Iowa, and Iowa Wesleyan University in Mount Pleasant, Iowa. She is also the co-owner and founder of Dynamic Music Studios in Coralville, Iowa, where she incorporates the Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz in her lessons. Christina, welcome to Morning Almonds, and thank you so much for your time.
Hey, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so how I found you is I was searching for guests for the show that mixed music and the Four Agreements, and I came across dynamicmusicstudiosiowa.com. So we had some synchronicities. Tell me about yourself and what we had kind of in common.
Sure, yeah. So that blog that I wrote about the Four Agreements incorporating in music and my teaching, I wrote, maybe 2 years ago. And I had come across the Four Agreements with a therapist that I was working with and figuring out how it works in my day-to-day routine. And I had been having some students coming in, and, I feel the youth that I'm working with today feels so much pressure to do everything right, to be perfect. They're constantly being judged, and I try and make my studio, when I'm teaching my students, yes, they're learning music, but it's also a safe place. And that's what I've been getting a lot from my students. So I had just seen this pattern of them saying, well, I'm just not good enough. Why aren't I doing this? This is hard. And so I realized that I had started feeling a sense of calm and finding my own self and my own voice when I would just take a minute to just one of the 4 agreements. Say, am I making an assumption? Or did I do my best? I did. So that's my goal, is to do my best. So figuring out a way to incorporate this with the younger students and to try and get them to have that mind frame and, self-worth at a young age, and have them start creating those thoughts at a young age and training them to have those thoughts and those practices at a young age. Because it's so much harder to give yourself that grace and that sense of self-worth when you're older, because you've been practicing the opposite for so long. So if I can give them the tools to do that in the beginning, I want them to feel safer and more confident as they age.
That's fantastic. I love that. So you found the 4 agreements through a therapist that you were working with. Talk to me, before we dive more into that, talk to me about your earliest musical memory.
Ooh, yeah, my earliest musical memory. I've got 2, I think, that I can talk about. One is when we first moved back to Kansas. We lived in Florida for a very small time. And when we moved back to Kansas, we were in the Cimarron, Dodge City area where my Grammy was. And she's the person that really got me into music and was nurturing that talent and those musical things that were just coming out of me as a child. And she had a piano, and I would just sit at the piano and play just the 5 keys that, pentatonic scale that everyone does. And they're like, I'm a musician and I'm great. And I would just play just whatever I could. And then, my mom, would come back to get me after a weekend at my Grammy's house. And my Grammy went to my mom and she said, you need to get that girl piano lessons or I'm going to kill her. Because, little kids are just doing their best. And so my mom got me into piano lessons. I think my Grammy helped me with some of that. So that was great. That really kind of got me in there. But I think before that, because this other memory is when we lived in Florida. I think I was in kindergarten and we were supposed to do, one of those music programs that they do in your general music classes. And I ended up being sick for that little program. And I remember being so sad. And my parents, they were really supportive, and they said, okay, here's what we're going to do. You can't go because you're sick. But then in our living room, we had one of those big trunks. My dad was in the Army, so we had one of those big Army trunks that we made our stage. And then we got a lamp and we shone it on me. And I had this dry erase marker that was my microphone. And I got to stand on the trunk and sing into the microphone. And I gave my own little concert performance for my parents as a 5-year-old. And I felt supported and it was great. And I think it was one of those moments when my parents always knew, she's going to be some kind of performer. She can't not. So that was really one of those supportive moments when you're a child that nurtures and supports, for sure. Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. So what led you specifically to the cello?
Well, I always sang. I was always singing something and dancing around. And then in the public schools in Kansas, they started orchestra in 5th grade. And my brother was 2 years ahead of me in school, and he played the string bass. And so then when it was my turn to try out the instruments, I didn't want to play the bass because my brother did it, but I was like, maybe. I was not at all interested in the violin. I was like, it's too trendy, it's too popular, everybody plays violin, I don't want to do it. So then process of elimination was, basses, I see them plucking the strings a lot. Well, obviously that's going to give me blisters on my fingers, and I don't want that. But viola, gosh, I just don't think that they pluck enough. So cello was kind of that happy medium of process of elimination. And then I started playing, and it fit. And cello was always very comfortable. It's a very natural instrument to play. It leans against the body well. It's not with violin and viola, there's kind of the way you have to hold it, bringing your arm around the instrument and having it under your chin. There's kind of a way where you have to do it right or it causes injury. Cello, there's a little bit more wiggle room. So it just feels more comfortable and natural to play. That doesn't mean that there aren't specific things that we need to do for posture and tone and that sort of thing. But there, especially for a beginner, a little bit more wiggle room for that. There was a time where I almost switched to flute. And I'm very glad I didn't. Yeah.
Okay.
Because in school, they started orchestra in 5th grade, but they start band in 6th grade. So after they have all the orchestra kids in 5th grade, then the band teachers come in and they're like, hey, try out our instruments. And I did really well with flute and trumpet, but flute, I was kind of like, oh, flute is kind of like a dainty, girly instrument. This would make me feel really happy. But then they didn't let us do orchestra and band at the same time. I had to pick one, and I was like, well, I'm already in orchestra, so.
Gotcha.
I'll do that. And it's funny because when I carry my cello around, people who are non-musicians, they, I've got this big thing on my back, and they're like, oh, I bet you wish you played the flute. And I'm like, little do you know.
That's
funny. No, I'm glad I did not play the flute.
Yeah, I actually did.
Oh yeah.
In band I played the flute, and it was because that's where the girls were. I know, and even if I was last chair, I was still. So yeah, that's very interesting.
Yeah. Did you do marching band?
Yeah, we did marching band, and then later on, I switched to like my senior year. They let me play the tritoms. Because I was like, I wanted to play drums, and they were like, no, we can't teach you that right now. So here's this. You can do this. So.
Oh my gosh, how funny. When I was in college, I did marching band, and I played the cymbals, because you got a $500 scholarship if you were in marching band. So I got to be on the drum line. So not only did I get to crash shiny things across the marching band field for the whole time, I got to hang out with the marching band, which had all the cute guys.
See, and this was at Washburn?
At Washburn.
Okay,
mm-hmm.
Yeah. What was the first piece of music, media, or book that you bought that you remember buying with your own money?
So the first cassette tape that I remember asking for, I think it was in 3rd grade, and it was Ace of Base.
Yes.
I would, yep. Mm-hmm.
Very good.
I Saw the Sign. Favorite song for a long time. The first piece of music, I didn't buy my first piece of music. It was given to me by my Grammy. And it was, again, like after I started taking piano lessons for a while. And it was Scott Joplin's The Entertainer. And I think it was kind of like a reduced, simplified version, but she gave it to me. And it was still a little advanced from where I was. But she was like, if you practice and you learn this, it's yours. And I said, okay. And so like slowly, I like started learning and doing more of the challenging things. And I learned it. She's like, here you go.
Awesome. Very good. So You've mentioned your grandma a couple of different times. Is she someone who's passed down a lot of legacy to you, literary, musically, culturally?
Yeah. So my Grammy, I think, wanted to be a pianist, and she's really the only musician in my family. Like other people in my family, like they did choir, but my mom, I think, took piano lessons when she was a kid. I think my dad took piano lessons when he was a kid, but no one really got into the culture of music except for her. So again, she got me into piano lessons. She came to growing up all of my orchestra concerts. And when my parents divorced my senior year of high school, and I went off to college at Washburn, and my mom lived in Reno, Nevada. My dad was then eventually moved to Lacon, Kansas. So, it was kind of a hike for them, but my Grammy, she was the one who said, great, you have this orchestra concert up at Washburn, and she would get on the train in Dodge City, Kansas at midnight and end up in Topeka at 6 a.m. and then we'd spend the weekend together. She would come to my concert. And then my grandpa, step-grandpa, but he's been my grandpa my whole life.
Sure.
He would come up with her, and then we would hang out in their hotel, and they'd teach me to play cribbage. And then when I met my husband and they would come up to Iowa, they taught him to play cribbage. So like now that's our thing. So lots of really good memories and lots of really good support. She helped me get the cello that I now have. And in the studio here in Iowa, when we created Dynamic Music Studios, I have a few other owners with me. We have 5 studios here in the facility, and they don't have like numbers on them. The studios are named after people. So my studio is the Virginia studio. The piano teacher, her studio is the Lila studio. And so that's both of our grandmothers who helped us become the musicians that we are today. And it's one of the studios is named the Alice Studio, and she is a person that all of us had worked with in the past who kind of like brought us together, and is why we know each other. And then she passed away. She was this darling, sweet, lovely old lady. She was Miss Alice, and every Christmas she would have her the gingerbread recitals where all her students would come and she'd give them gingerbread cookies. So she was, a person who all of us here in Iowa helped develop our relationship. So we have a studio named after her. So we try and really honor those who made us the people we are today.
Yeah, I love that. I was just going to say, what a great way to honor that legacy and the name and everything like that. That's fantastic.
Yeah. And if you go to our website, like if you look at the studios, we have the list of the names of all of the studios and like who these people were and how they influenced us and their background. So you can actually like see who these women are. It's really neat. And we have like little QR codes when people come in the studio. If they're like, what is this? They scan the QR code and it goes to their page.
Gotcha. Myself being a child of divorced parents, never meeting my father, was that one of the hardest challenges that you've gone through, going through the divorce and that type of thing, or?
Yeah, it sucked. Divorce always sucks. And it was during my senior year of high school. I was 17. And then just the way timing worked out, I graduated high school, and then like within the next week, my mom had gone ahead and left and moved out to Reno. And then I spent my first year of college actually at Garden City Community College. So I did it there. I got some of my gen eds out of the way and kind of just adjusting to change. And then I had some friends who were at Washburn and some that were at KU. So as I said, I'll come out here, audition, have a couple lessons with the instructor. And it was at that time a really good fit for me. And I did have a support system out there. So that's how that transition happened. But yeah, divorce sucks. There was a lot of fighting, a lot of distance, but then afterwards, as I grew and matured, realized that like that's actually the best thing that could have happened for my parents. They are very different, and if my parents had stayed together, like I may never have left Garden City, just because I like safe environments, and change can be, especially at that time, a 17-year-old, change is scary. Being alone is scary. So I would have probably stayed and had a totally different trajectory for what I was going to become.
Yeah, it's crazy how those things work out. I'm also divorced in my life from my older three daughters' mom. And one of my daughters recently told me basically the same type of thing, that she realizes that, things happen the way they're supposed to, and it works out to some degree. And like you said, the trajectory where we go and things like that. So how old were you when you found the 4 agreements?
What year is it? Like 37.
Okay.
It was like 2021. I'm trying to think of like when I found this therapist. I think it was like 2021. Yeah.
Talk to me about the initial reaction you had when you finished reading the book. Were you able to finish it all in one chunk?
No. I actually, when I started, so this was my third therapist that I had found. Like the first therapist I had was great. Like it was a good intro to therapy, and it worked. And then eventually, people grow out of each other's relationships. Like I'd grown out of what this therapist was able to give me and what I needed. I'll throw out BetterHelp is great, because if you need to break up with a therapist, breakup is a harsh term, but like if a therapist doesn't fit you and you need to move on, but you're in therapy probably because you got a lot of people pleasing issues, right? So you don't be like, this isn't working. You can just click a button and, and it's fine. And you don't have to have that conversation. And then you can go through a different therapist until you find one that works for you. And that's what happened for me. I found this third one, and I said, I have these issues with my past. I have these traumas. I have these people-pleasing issues. I have self-doubt and imposter syndrome. And these other therapists said it's because of this past and this trauma. And she's like, cool, we identified the problem. How do we fix it?
Right.
I'm glad you know what the problem is. Now we need to work on moving forward, versus just lingering on, well, this goes back to, and so again, one of the first things she said was check out the 4 agreements. And she said, you can read the book. You don't have to. You can just look at the agreements. it's very short and to the point and go from there. And that's what I did for a while. And then very recently I was like, well, I should probably, if I'm going through this, I should read the whole book. And I'm glad I did to get a little bit more perspective on the person who wrote it. I could tell that it was written in the 90s.
Yes.
Just because I think the rhetoric of how we approach things now has changed so differently. I hate saying in the past 30 years because it was written in the 90s, but it is what it is.
It absolutely is.
Yeah. So seeing perspective, and we can evolve that verbiage that he used and make it a little bit more relevant to mind growth that we have developed today.
Okay.
So again, I think that's why just the outline of the 4 is good and it's to the point for sure.
So for me right now, the theme that carries me throughout the day with the 4 agreements is just remembering that everybody is in their own reality. And that really helps me, tone down those, taking things personal, making assumptions, that everybody is in their own dream. What's that one theme that carries you through with that 4 agreements like that always kind of reminds you and helps you?
Oh, I think it's the making assumptions. I am the queen of creating my own narrative in my head. And it's not a bad thing. It's a survival technique, right? You assume the worst because if you assume the worst, then you can protect yourself and you don't die and you live and you survive, right? So I am the queen of creating. I've named the voice in my head. Her name is Dolores. And so if a scenario comes in, Dolores starts saying, oh, they looked at you this way. They're probably doing this, I have a need and so I need to ask for a need. But if you ask for that need, you're going to inconvenience them and then they'll get mad at you. And then, then they won't like you anymore, or it'll change the dynamic of your relationship, or they'll tell you that your feelings are wrong. And so really, one, naming that voice has been helpful. Be like, thank you, Dolores. You're trying to keep me safe. It's not what I need right now. I'm going to not make this assumption and I'm going to be curious. So I think that's the biggest one that I try and really incorporate as I'm going through things. The other thing that I do is also when I came across the 4 agreements, my therapist recommended Esther Hicks and the Law of Attraction and Eckhart Tolle and the Power of Now. And the Power of Now, I do a lot of audiobooks, and Eckhart Tolle narrates his audiobooks. So I do that one in chunks. Be like, oh, this seems like a good time. I'll listen to some of this. Okay, that's great. That's very insightful. Esther Hicks is very interesting. I don't know if you've heard of her or the Law of Attraction.
I have not. I've jotted it down yeah.
Oh, yeah. So it's super neat. It is a little more eccentric. She is a person who, she and her husband, I forget the whole backstory, but she was doing some kind of meditation and she encompasses a different spirit called Abraham.
Okay.
And they give messages from the universe. And so the Law of Attraction is really talking about how you control your thoughts and how you control your actions, and the energy and vibrations that you put out come back to you, which resonates a lot with me. So the biggest thing that I've gotten from that is how you incorporate, how you say, so kind of like be impeccable with your words, right? Instead of saying, I do not want to be around people who bring me down. Instead, I say to myself, I surround myself by kind and genuine people.
Yeah.
When I journal, I try to avoid anything that has, I do not want this. I am, anything, no. And so that way I can say, I don't want financial struggle. I say, I have financial stability. Instead of saying, I don't want to eat junk food. I say, I provide my body with healthy sustenance. That sort of thing. I don't want to be sick. I say, my body is healthy. So just reframing those words. And I've recently seen some reel on Instagram or TikTok that said a good way to visualize this is ordering at a restaurant. So if you go to a restaurant and they say, what would you like? Your server comes up to you and says, what would you like to eat? You don't say, I don't want spaghetti.
Right.
You say, you try and be more like, I want tacos. You don't say, I don't want spaghetti. And so then the server says, well, what do you want? And you say, I don't care. I just don't want spaghetti. And then you're in this restaurant and the server's going around to other tables and, goes back to the kitchen like, oh, what did that person want? What did that person want? All I remember is they said spaghetti. And so then it's more likely that you will get spaghetti because that's the only thing that you said. So if you say, I don't want to be sick, the universe I hear it being sick. So I'm going to make them sick. Yeah. And so it's kind of,
wow.
Yeah, having that perspective and that thought process. And again, the energy that you put out there.
Yeah. Gotcha. And that was the, what book was that?
The Law of Attraction.
Gotcha. Okay. Very good. You mentioned something that struck me when you talked about the book being written in the 90s and, how we message that today. Can I assume, there I go, I made an assumption. Can I assume that you work with a lot of younger folks in your studio? Or is it, yeah. Mm-hmm. How do you incorporate those 4 agreements so it doesn't sound 30 years old for those kids?
Yeah. That is an excellent question. How do I do that? I don't tell them things. I ask them questions. Yeah. It's very rare in my lessons that, they're going through something like they're working on a technique and they say, it made this sound. I don't like this sound. And I was like, what about it don't you like? Well, it was a thin sound. And I say, okay, so what sound do you want more of? And they say, well, and again, I work with them being like, well, I don't want a thin sound. Cool. But what do you want? And then we do go through the process of intentionally creating a sound that they don't like. So then they know what to avoid and exploring different ways to go about making different sounds. And I also tell them no sound is bad. Every sound is different. This may not have been the sound you intended to make it this time. Doesn't mean it's bad.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And yeah, exactly. So the whole point is to explore. And I have one student, he's doing a really good job. Like it's so common, adult or younger student, they play something like that sounded bad. And I say, try again. And then they're like, that wasn't what I intended. Great. Good job. Yes, it wasn't what you intended. Very, very good. Okay. Now, why are you assuming that it was bad? Well, I made this one mistake here. And I said, cool. You just played me 37 measures of something, and you're focusing on this one thing. Can you tell me, so what 2 notes out of 37 measures? Cool. Can you give me out of the other 36 measures that you had at least one thing, but I'm going to ask for 3. And it can be, you made it to the end. Congratulations, you didn't stop. It can be, this sound was really good. So I'm, again, really trying to get them to acknowledge like, okay, that wasn't intended. Doesn't mean it's bad. But also, what about the good things? You have to show me the good things. You can't just focus on those other things, because then that helps the voice in their head being like, yes, but also I did this as well.
Yeah. Very good. Fantastic. So let's switch gears a little bit. And I know we talked about, you going through a divorce as a child and that. What is another hard challenge that you've had to walk through, if you don't mind sharing?
Yeah. So something that was really challenging, still like in my early 20s, when I went to Washburn, I ended up having a professor that was supposed to be very much a mentor and a safe place for me. And like halfway through my college career, it ended up not being that situation. So I would, leave whatever session I had with them, like in tears. And again, like the first 2 years were great. I felt like I was learning. I felt like I was progressing. And then somewhere within the 2 years, our personalities or our expectations changed, and it just didn't mesh. And I'm pretty sure, like in my early 20s, like I wasn't even 22 yet, 2021. You think like, oh, I'm in college now, I'm an adult, I know things, and you're still learning. And I was trying to figure out, how am I still learning? How much do I know? How do I become an adult in the world? And I think also on their part, they had expectations that I didn't know I was supposed to be meeting. And so I think there was just conflict there. So my last 2 years at Washburn were super challenging, because this was supposed to be a safe place. This was supposed to be some place where I was learning. This was supposed to be some place where I was growing. And it's like the more we tried to make that happen, the more it didn't happen. But I was really lucky, because I did have professors in other areas that were supportive, and maybe not in a realm where I needed support, but in a different one where it compensated for that. So it was worth it for me to stay at Washburn and to have those other relationships that were nurturing and mentoring and gave me a lot of, I'm going to say, like, techniques and curiosity that I have with my students today.
Yeah.
There are moments when I'm with a student and I'm like, what would Dr. Snook do in this moment? And I try and be my best Dr. Snook that I can be. And there are certain phrases that I will never say to a student because I had negative connotations with them as I was growing and developing to become that person.
What are some of those phrases?
I will never call anyone dear.
Okay.
Dear. I will never say, why don't you just try harder? Yeah, I will. There's just a poise and what's the word that I want to say? Like a poise and a character and an arrogance that I will never show my students. I will always come down to their level and be where they are and where they need me to be. Because you have to teach to the student. You can't teach to your own expectations.
That's fantastic. And so you probably, that makes it sound like, I'm sure you have all these individual lesson plans that you are specific to the student, it sounds like, probably, and not this broad.
Yeah, in our lessons, like I'm always, we have a program where I take notes in their lessons. I email it to the student and the parent after every lesson, so I keep track of where we are. And I make sure I try and have some kind of conversation with all of my students before we start playing, so I can get an idea of mentally, where are they today? Like, how is their energy level? How much can I push? How much, you've had a rough week. Do you want to just sight read some pop music today and not really think, not have the pressure of something else there? And then I also get an idea, like, what's going on in their lives. How do they take criticism? Do they want criticism? Some students thrive. Like, tell me what needs to be better. And that's how they get stronger. And some students, need a little bit more gentle words to go with them.
Yeah. So that situation at Washburn, what did that teach you about yourself?
Ooh, I have a very soft heart. No, words mean things, and I do not care for arrogance.
Yeah.
I do not care for people letting their egos get in the way of connection.
Yeah.
That was a big thing. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. This is awesome. I started this to kind of spread, my message and learn and have other people help us throughout this process. And then I'm like, what am I going to learn from my guests? And I've learned so much from you just in that 30 minutes that we've been on. So this is fantastic.
Yeah. Well, you're asking great questions, and I love that you're always learning. It doesn't matter who you're talking to. It doesn't matter if I'm talking to a student that's 10 years old. It doesn't matter if I'm talking to my student that's 82 years old. I'm always learning something from them.
Yeah. If any of the listeners right now are going through their own rough patch, what would be what's one truth that you would want to hand them to help them to get through?
It's your own adventure. This is your journey. You gotta stop going and seeing these videos and seeing these young kids who essentially came out of the womb with an instrument in their hands and playing, and especially the adult students. They see these younger kids playing, they come into lessons with me and they say, I'm just not good enough. I don't sound like you. And I'm like, I don't want you to sound like me. If you sounded like me, I would not have a job, one. And two, you chose this journey for a reason, right? Whether it's to keep your brain thinking and working and growing, or because you love the sound, or you have a goal to at least play a couple measures of a piece that you've heard. It's your journey. And it's not, when you take this journey, it's not just about you learning an instrument. It's about you learning an instrument while also having a life. And a lot of students come in, oh, this kid in my orchestra class, they're playing this section and it's so great. And I say, cool. Are they in tennis like you are? Well, no. Are they in these AP classes that you're taking and they have to study these extra hours? Well, no. So see, there's a difference there. They have their journey and their priorities and how they go about their day-to-day life, and you have yours, and you have your things that bring you joy. They have their things that bring them joy. And it's not fair for either of you to say, well, why don't I look, sound, play like they do? It's your own journey. Own it. Do what you can. Do your best, right?
Yeah.
So there's that. It's your journey and no one else's.
Yeah, I love that. That's awesome. And then it keeps that, it's about comparing ourselves, right? And so good. I love that. I read somewhere that you performed with Rod Stewart.
Yeah.
Tell me about that, and what was that like?
Yeah, so that was fun. I got that big because I literally knew a guy who knew a guy who knew a guy.
Nice.
And Rod Stewart was coming through Cedar Rapids, and I happened to fit the bill. The email I got was, Rod Stewart's coming through. He needs this string quintet, something to play. Has to be female players. They can't be older, or they can't look older than 35. And the words in there were, looks are more important than talent. And I'm just like, oh, dear God. Okay, great. And then the guy who sent me the email was like, I do not feel comfortable finding people to play this. So 1, will you play? 2, will you find other players for me? I will pay you extra. And I said, okay. So that was wild, but it was, I know enough talented people that I think are lovely inside and out. So it was not an issue to find them. And then when we got there, that was such a wild experience. So we go in and, I've got my badge, and I've got my folder of music that says Rod Stewart on it. And we go and, we worked with his head fiddle player, because he has musicians with his band and stuff, and he's got this fiddler that has been touring with them. And me being me, I'm like, how did you get this gig? What is your background? And so we're just like chit-chatting, and she's like, oh crap, I have 3 minutes to teach you guys these little dance moves to do after you play. So here it is, and good luck, and just follow the dancers in front of you. So, and then we had a little like dress rehearsal beforehand, and then we went backstage, and it was only like 4 songs that we played on. And she said, when you go on stage, you're going to sit down and you're going to play like the nice acoustic set for Rod. And he's going to ask you questions. You will not be able to understand him. Just smile and nod, because that's going to be your reaction. And if you don't smile and nod, he'll make some pithy comment about like, these people never listen to me. So just smile and nod. Okay, great. Played our acoustic set, went back. They fed us. Great meal. Their catering was on point. They even said they had to make catering stop feeding them dessert because they were gaining weight and weren't fitting into their costumes anymore.
That's hilarious.
So they had to, so they had to have some adjustments there. And then the very end, we did what is it? Do you think I'm sexy?
Yeah.
Is that the one?
Yeah.
And so that's when like where, we play a little bit, and then like we walk to the right and we walk to the left and we do some little things with our bows. And then like, I'm just there, I'm grooving, I'm having the best time. He walked behind me and he touched my head, and then like we made eyes on stage, and then he went off and did his own thing. And then it got to the end, and again, so then I'm just like playing and grooving, and I don't even know what's happening until one of the dancers like grabs me and pulls me back. And all of a sudden the stage comes down. I'm like not paying attention to anything around me. I almost got totally taken out by whatever stage setting curtain they had there. And thank God for that dancer, or I would be in a different position here. Yeah.
You were just in the moment. Yeah.
So that was I was in the moment. I was having the time of my life. There were like balloons flying around and confetti and lights. And it was really a great time.
Christina, that is fantastic. That is a great story. I was also looking around on your ChristinaCGcello.com, and I came across a very interesting video. There's a T-Rex that is playing the cello, and I'm going to put a link when I get all these first few episodes done. I'm going to have links to the sites and stuff, and so we'll make sure. Tell me what was going on that day.
So, this would have been in 2016. So the inflatable T-Rex costumes were pretty popular. They're still popular, but it was more in the beginning of that era. My husband had just been deployed in April of that year. And the year before, he was asking me, what do you want for Christmas? And I was like, I really want one of these costumes. I did not get one of those costumes for Christmas.
Okay.
And so my birthday is coming up. He's deployed. What do you want for your birthday? I just start sending him videos of people in the inflatable T-Rex costume. And so I got it for my birthday, lo and behold. And so then I'm like obsessed. I'm literally wearing this thing like everywhere. I take it I just like walk into work at that time where I was working in the T-Rex costume, and everyone's like, oh my God, this is amazing. I think I wore it into a rehearsal. And then I was like, I got to do something more with this. So I like figured out, Jurassic Park theme, something. And, I had a friend come over and I was like, all right, we're going to do this. And so I just sit down like with the costume. Now the thing is, it's huge, right? So as soon as you sit down, like the little clear screen for your face, like goes above your head. So if you sit down, like whatever you're playing, you have to have memorized. So I'm like, all right. So I sit down and I'm playing. And then afterwards I'm watching the video, and then my cat's just like, cool, this is fine. Just hanging out in the background. And, so I did it, and I was very excited, and it was one of my first, it was the T-Rex debut on that. I'm going to regret saying this. There's another video of me in that T-Rex outfit, where it's very G-rated, but, because my husband was deployed, I was like, I need to keep him entertained. Sure. So like, I, went to Goodwill and did buy some extra large undergarments that I could put over, somehow I got it to work. There is a little T-Rex striptease that is out there.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I love that. I love you. I love your silliness with that. And the fact that you were walking around in this thing and just like incorporating it into your daily life is fantastic.
I know. My dog hates it. Something about the fan, like as soon as I put it on, she like hides and like barks and wants absolutely nothing to do with it.
Gotcha. Well, because when I was researching, I saw that you had a dog, and then when I saw the video, I saw the cat go by. I was like, oh, she got cats too, because we have 5 cats.
Yeah.
We're a huge cat family, so that's fantastic. Awesome.
Yeah, I was a cat person until I was a dog person.
Yeah.
I had cats growing up, and then I got my dog, and I was like, oh no, this is my child. And, you know, I loved all of my children equally. The cats were older, and our last cat crossed the Rainbow Bridge in 2022. And unfortunately, my husband's a little allergic. So we haven't gotten one since, and it was so weird because I had always had a cat since I was like 6. And so not having a cat for a while was really weird. And then I got really happy about not having to clean kitty litter. I didn't know that was a choice until I didn't have a cat.
You know, that is...
But I have to pick up dog poop in other ways.
Right.
So, you know, to each his own.
Yeah. So do you visit back home much? Do you get back to Southwest Kansas at all? Is there a reason to go back there?
So my dad still lives in Lakin, it's like 20 miles west of Garden City, and my brother lives in Dodge City still. So I do go back, and I still have a good crowd of people who live in like Topeka, Lawrence, Kansas City.
Okay.
So, and that's kind of like halfway between where I live in Iowa and my hometown. So sometimes my dad and I will meet in the middle in Kansas City.
Okay.
Or, I mean, I do go back. I'm actually still really close to my high school orchestra teacher who was still teaching orchestra in Garden City.
Wow.
We were really fortunate. We got her married to a farmer, so she can never leave.
Yeah, I'm telling you what, right?
Yeah. She's also very good at her job and really, really fantastic. So, this past spring, back in March, actually, I went back and I soloed with the orchestra there, and that was a lot of fun. That was a kind of a come around moment. I don't know, because I remember being in high school and we had a soloist come and play with us one time. I was like, oh, that's going to be me someday, and sure enough, there it was. And it was really neat, really fun, really fulfilling, for sure.
Very good, very good. Well, Christina, I've really enjoyed our conversation today. Is there any current projects or anything that you want to promote? Yeah.
So a big project of mine, well, a couple projects. So again, being like back in southwestern Kansas, and you know, growing up, we had our orchestra teacher. We're in Garden City. We're kind of the biggest town within like 4-hour radius. Yeah. There's not a lot. So accessibility to lessons is very limited. It's better today because we have the internet and YouTube, which was not as much of a thing back in the mid 90s. So I want to create an avenue for those students who just don't have accessibility to those things regularly in a traditional way. And, you know, students who are busy, or adults who have lives, who have busy lives, you know, children, work, that sort of thing. And so the traditional, now I will have my lesson at 5 p.m. Like it just doesn't work with their schedule. I'm trying to create an avenue for them to have that accessibility. So I'm working on creating like lessons on demand. So like a recorded subscription thing. I've got videos recorded. I'm starting the website and the program. It's very daunting to sell videos of yourself. It's terrifying. And so it's something that I've been wanting to do for like a solid 1.5 years. I'm like, okay, I made a video. Good job. Yeah. Now I have to edit the video. Oh God. And then, okay, so I have like this first chapter of videos. Great. Now I have to get it on this website. Technology is hard. Oh God. Yeah. And then like I get there, and then it's like, okay, now you have to promote it.
Yeah.
Okay. you can do this. You can do this. And that's where I hit a wall and I'm like, so then I decided I was at a point where I was teaching all of my students at one time were like learning a whole bunch of like the same scale, and they have the book, and I'm like I actually want you to use this fingering instead, and I want you to try this rhythm. This rhythm isn't written in the book, so I'm going to write out this rhythm for you. And so eventually I was like, why am I doing all this extra work? Write your own scale book. So I'm doing that. I have it written out. It's now in the editing process. So I've gotten some edits back. I'm making the changes, and in general, that's much more approachable and safer to me because I'm not selling my face. Yeah. I'm not selling my personality. I'm selling literature and a method. So that feels more comfortable. And I think that's it feels like a safer step for me. So as soon as I finish making all the edits, then I just go through, copyright, ISBN, and then my goal is to have it available to have a print version or an electronic version. Because a lot of kids these days, everything's on their tablets. They have these tablets through school, and that's where everything is on. When I was back in Kansas working with the high school orchestra there, all of anybody that was working on solo stuff, like all of their music was on their tablet, and they were playing from electronic copies. So making it accessible for them, but then talking with my adult students, and they say, I want the paper copy. I need this. Be like, cool, have it accessible for you as well. And the people that I've been working with to get edits and to get ideas, they're really excited. They love my process. It's very thorough. It's very clean to look at. Because the other thing is there's so many scale books out there. There's so many method books. Which one do you use? And a lot of them, like the standards, they're great, but the editing technology that they had back then just leads to a lot of black on the page. And so you look at these scales and these exercises, and it's just daunting because there's so much on the page. There's so much to look at. And that visual aspect affects your ability to incorporate and learn the literature and feel like you're doing it well. So I made sure visually it looks approachable. Yeah. It's called Approachable Scales for Cello.
Very good.
Yeah, and I put volume 1, so I'm not limited. So if I create something else, then I can be volume 2, and I don't have to come up with a new name.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Now that
work smarter, not harder.
Yeah, for sure. And you're just getting all this. When do you think you're going to have everything ready and to go?
I would love. This is the goal for mine. And instead of being it would be nice, I should be I will have this done. I would like to have it done by Black Friday.
Okay. Yeah.
So then, because that's a good time, right before Christmas, people are looking for gifts, be hey, look at this great new skill book. Yeah. And then once I feel a level of completion there, then I'm going to jump back to finishing at least my first series of video subscription lessons.
Gotcha.
And with that, creating the platform that I'm using does offer an online platform for community. What's the word that I'm looking for? A forum, an online forum. So anyone who's taking and being a part of the series can go in and they can chat amongst each other, give each other ideas. I can be in there too, nice. Because it's always a group effort, right? And you learn by teaching.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So if someone's and sometimes because I've been playing for so long, a lot of things that I tell my students is do this. This feels natural because I've been doing this since I've been 10 and I'm brainwashed to know that this is natural. So do your best.
Right.
And so realizing the other thing too is I started when I was 10 years old in school, but I didn't have my first private lesson until I was 17.
Okay.
So I started private lessons late enough in life that I can still recall some of those challenges in the beginning and what was my thought process and what was the struggle, what was the challenge, and how did I overcome that? So I have a little bit more reference to relate to the challenges and struggles that my students have.
Gotcha. Mm-hmm. That's fantastic that it's not just my way, mm-hmm. that type of thing and the way you present mm-hmm. that to your students. That's fantastic. Tell me, I'm going to ask you one last 4 agreements related question. How do you, because there's been times when I've had not struggles, but not everybody's ready to read the Four Agreements when you're trying to talk about it. How do you present it, or how do you relay it in your like day-to-day life with like a peer or a colleague or somebody who might not know the Four Agreements? How do you present it to them?
Yeah. So I think, again, I start with questions. I don't say, don't make assumptions. If someone says, well, this happened and this is, exactly what they were thinking, and I'm going to take this defensively. Instead of me being like, don't make assumptions, I say, what specifically made you feel that way? And could this be interpreted a different way? Or is that your problem? Like, do you actually need to be worrying about? Is that your problem? That's a big one. And I do say a lot, like, that's their journey, not yours. A ton.
I like that. I like that a lot, because I know people have gotten sick of hearing me say something about Four Agreements, and I also kind of found Ram Dass along the way. And Ram tells us to, the only work we have to do is on ourselves. And that really helped me realize, hey, yeah, we work on ourselves. We create this optimum environment for other people to feel the same way. So I like that, presenting it in different ways where you're not even letting them know you're talking about the Four Agreements and things like that. So that's fantastic. Well, Christina, I really, really thank you for your time. I know you're a busy, busy lady. I appreciate your time so much. And the willing to just hop on with the stranger and do this thing. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, you bet.
I'm going to have links to your websites for the Dynamic Music Studio Iowa and your ChristinaCGcello.com, so y'all can see that awesome T-Rex video playing the cello and some of her other great music. All right. Thank you so much for your time today, Christina. Have a great day.
Thanks, you as well.
In the process of the Four Agreements fundamentally changing my life, it has also allowed me to be more open and aware to other vehicles to help me be content and live a fulfilled life. Not being focused on what other people are saying or making assumptions or beating myself up, not being impeccable with my word. That was keeping me from being. When you're always focused on the dark, it's so hard to see the light. And that's what this book did for me. It helped me shed that darkness so I could see more light. There's another story, and I brought it up in my first episode. I've got a good buddy, and I had given him the copy of the Four Agreements. And we've talked about it many times, and we talk about different themes in the book. And I'm not sure that he's actually read the book. I know he's read bits and pieces. And I'm not sure how it transpired, but one day the Four Agreements got brought up with his mother-in-law, and he gave her a copy, and she was profoundly changed by the book. And it dawned on me that me trying to pass the book on to my buddy, it wasn't for him. It was for his mother-in-law. The Four Agreements found her through him, through me. And I have found over and over, this is how it works. The Four Agreements find you when you need it. When I got done reading the book for the first time, and I was laying in my COVID sickness bed, I had tears streaming down my face. And my thought was, why didn't anybody share this information with me a long, long time ago? And then I realized quickly that I would not have been ready for that message. Past Josh would not have been open to receive any of the things that were in that book. It found me when it needed to. I had to go through all the other bullshit to be here now. At that time in the fall of 2022, I needed the Four Agreements bad. I was flailing. I was falling into old addiction patterns. I was searching, I was seeking, I was traveling, going on trips. The Four Agreements found me exactly when it needed to. One thing that Christina talks about in our conversation is do your best. And I just want to break that down real quick. Do. Do is something that's actionable. We have to do it. It's not passive. Your. Only you. No comparisons. Do your. And then there's best. And best varies from day to day and situation to situation. If you're sick or you're hurt, your best is going to be different. Do your best. On my last read-through of the 4 agreements, do your best is the one that stuck out the most. And this passage has helped a lot, especially talking about expectations with ourselves when it comes to these agreements. And I'm going to read this directly out of the book. The first 3 agreements will only work if you do your best. Don't expect that you will always be able to be impeccable with your word. Your routine habits are too strong and firmly rooted in your mind. But you can do your best. Don't expect that you will never take anything personally. Just do your best. Don't expect that you will never make another assumption. But you can certainly do your best. By doing your best, the habits of misusing your word, taking things personally, and making assumptions will become weaker and less frequent with time. In my situation, sometimes I feel like an imposter when I don't live up to those 4 agreements. And when I talk to people about them and then I don't follow the 4 agreements, or I fail, or I don't do my best, I can sometimes feel like an imposter. And I came by that passage on my last read-through, and it really, really helped out a lot. So you're not always going to be able to be impeccable with your word. You're not always going to be able to not take things personally or make assumptions, but we have to do our best in the meantime. A few more things as we wrap up here. I don't want you to interpret "don't take anything personal" as you can say whatever you want to someone under the premise they shouldn't take it personal. If you aren't being impeccable with your word, if you're being mean, saying hurtful things, you don't get to be like, "Don't take it personal." The other part of assumptions is, don't assume others know what you think. Don't assume that they know what you want so well, and then you get upset with them when they don't meet an expectation or a boundary that was never even given. You can't assume that people know what you want or what you expect. A few other things to ponder when it comes to the iPad of the 4 agreements: the I, the P, the A, the D. For I, think of internal impeccability integration equals external impeccability integration. The more you use white magic on yourself, the more you will use it on others. P, personal. If somebody says something to you and it was mean or hurtful, remember this: they were probably priorly pissed. So don't take it personal. When it comes to assumptions, I think of AAA. Ask questions. Anything. I can't really do anything about it right now. And the last A is all works out. Most all the time, everything works out. We're making these assumptions. We're driving down the road. We probably can't do anything about it at that time anyway. We haven't been able to ask any questions. And it's all going to work out. When it comes to D, for do your best, think of determined, dedicated, and diligent. Determined, dedicated, and diligent. In closing, this also comes directly from the book. When you honor these 4 agreements together, there is no way you will live in hell. There is no way. If you are impeccable with your word, if you don't take anything personally, if you don't make assumptions, and if you always do your best, then you are going to have a beautiful life. You are going to control your life 100%. And finally, as an adult, you can choose to believe in anything, and that includes yourself. I hope you stay right here for episode number 5. It's my story about how music nourishes me and what it's meant throughout my life. Thanks again for your time. If this episode spoke to you, don't keep it to yourself. Subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who needs a little nourishment. New episodes drop bi-weekly, so bring a friend, and let's help walk each other home. This has been the Morning Almonds Podcast. Please support local musicians, artists, and other creatives.